Academy awardee, was the first principal of the college, had served as a principal for 17 years, toiled himself for the upliftment of our college. The incumbent secretary, the most respected personality through APCV Chokalingam, uh, follows the footsteps of our founder, complying with the principle of non-commercialization of education without compromising quality of education since 1982. Our founders' steadfast patriotism and national popularity uh, has earned several eminent visitors to our college. Our college has been visited by several esteemed statesmen, starting from prime ministers, governors, chief ministers, vice chancellors, and scientists have also have visited our college. I mean, a very few colleges in India can boast such visits by the great sons of our country. Our college vision, as everybody knows, it is education for all. The dreams of our founder has been achieved through various endeavors carried out in our institution, which facilitates us in the attainment of our vision. Our college celebrates Platinum Jubilee, ingrained in principle of non-commercialization, providing quality and holistic education to the disadvantaged sections of the society in and around Tuticorin. Our mission, our mission has been always to strive towards developing our students in all fields and promote holistic development by providing become the research and entrepreneur skilling, then providing some job oriented courses like skill enhancement for job employability, then focusing on holistic development of students in all the fields. As far as VOC is concerned, as one among my colleague pointed out that in the NAC and in the NIRF, as one among the institution in the great country, still as far as VOC, it is present in the tip of the country. Tuticorin is situated in the tip of the country. We have been doing our best for the development of the society through our educational institution. But today's seminar also, that FDP also, our professors have arranged the importance of multilinguistic. Apart from that, as a principal of this great institution, Vivo Chidambaram College, acting as a center for knowledge by providing the highest quality of research led by teaching. The college actively promote research culture and inculcate research programs, enriching and enhancing the professional competence of both students as well as staff. Riding high, our institution has introduced a variety of consultancy services and has also been a pioneer research in this region. To make that 10 departments are being elevated as a research center. More than 130 students are pursuing the research programs under the able guidance of our faculty members. In the faculty, as a institution head, I am very proud to say that at this juncture, we are having 50 research guides in our college. Apart from that, in the previous NAC record says that as far as the 177 scholars are pursuing their research under the guidance of 53 supervisors with the erudite profile of more than 1,500 research publications in the year 2023. To be on the up and up, as far as VOC is concerned, right from inception has made into road and getting several seminars, conferences, workshops, uh, research projects to the tune of so far more than 8 crores of rupees fundings from UGC, CSAR, GBT, then ICSSR, IB, etc. The latest addition being, as far as VOC is concerned, in the year 2019, we got a Parama scheme. We have been acted as one among the mentor recognized by the NAC. Apart from that, we got 88 lakhs rupees under the scheme of Stride, sanctioned by UGC. So, as far as VOC is concerned, as I have already pointed out, that 10 departments have been elevated as a research center. Hats off to my faculty, because their tireless effort only it has been doing a lot of activities from our institution. Apart from that, as far as ours concerned, students' point of view, scholastic and non-scholastic activities, the students brought so much of medals, cups, and they have been raising our flag. As far as VOC is concerned, I'm very proud to say that as a principal, as an alumnus of this great institution, 106 colleges, affiliated colleges present in MS University area, till now, till minute, VOC is occupying the first position. So apart from that, in Tamil Nadu, VOC is occupying top 10 colleges list. VOC is occupying 7th position. Maybe you may be aware of that. In Tamil Nadu, 1,582 arts and science colleges are there. In overall in India, 53,000 of educational institutions, including universities. But VOC now, we are occupying India rankings as far as the NIRF is concerned. As our professor pointed out, we are occupying a 22nd position. So we have been doing a lot of activities. Apart from that, 35 functional MOU have been signed by VOC. All the MOUs from different departments, and they have been doing a lot of activities for the student point of view. After finishing their studies, they have to get some jobs, which is available in the market. Apart from that, we had a sign with the Bharatidasan University IECD. Through these courses, as I have pointed out, we have been running a skill enhancement for on improving job employability courses. And most of the courses students are studying and they are getting a job. In the previous academic year, I want to point out very clearly, 236 students got a placement. In total, as far as VOC is concerned, since 2004, we are effectively doing a placement cell in our college. Till now, more than 8,000 students among the 22 years gap, more than 8,000 students got a placement from our educational institution. Apart from that, as you all know, as far as the arts and science colleges are concerned, maybe especially in the aided, getting a grants nowadays, it's very difficult, because all over the India and international, some of the professors, they are all present through the online. You may accept my word. So what we are thinking in our mind, but we are all working for the welfare of the students always. We are tapping the funds through CSR. So we have been running 4 CSR in our college premises. One CSR is a breakfast scheme for the female lady students. As a principal, as I already pointed out, among the 1,582 institutions present in Tamil Nadu, we are the only one college. We are providing a breakfast scheme under the corporate social responsibility schemes for 150 girl students. Apart from that, we have been doing computer training programs, and we bought solar panels, and we bought a RO, And recently we have we bought interactive panels. These are all the panels are all very useful for the students community to learn how to use the ICT tools. Apart from that, we have been doing a lot of activities, and in the previous year VOC is the only college in MS University area. We have introduced BSc Computer Science with the Artificial Intelligence and Machine Learning program. And next academic year also, we are planning to introduce BSc Tourism and Aviation and BCom Logistics and Supply Chain Management. As far as the MOUs are concerned, which I have pointed out early, the last MOU, VOC had signed a MOU with the Airport Authority of India. So we have been constantly encouraging our students to undergo internship, hands-on training, and how to overcome the hurdles to get a job in the market. And recently, since 2019, we have been focusing to introduce some foreign languages. Initially, we were introduced one foreign language, and after that Corona, now we have started this year. We have introduced a Japanese language, and next year also we are planning to introduce some new courses along with the job oriented skills program, along with the students skills, upskilling their skills. This is very important for us. As far as ours concerned, with the help of my faculty members, we have been doing a lot of activities for the welfare of the students to tap the job in the which is available in the market. As far as Tuticorins, you may be aware of that, which I have already told you just few minutes back. It is a tip of the country. So we have been doing a lot of activities. We are running in a non-commercialization way. VOC, it is our founder's principle. Even though we are facing so much of financial constraints, the VOC, we are not collecting even a single naya paisa as a capitation fee for the students' admission and staff appointments. You just think about that, how the management is running this college in an effective way. So, as I already told, now I am occupying the principal chair, but I am a proud alumnus of this great institution. As far as VOC is concerned, nowadays the English professors, our English department professors took a very good, that is FDP. So I congratulate all the faculty members, especially Dr. Colette and Dr. Rani Priyadarshini and Dr. Ananda Vaishnavi. As far as mine concern as a principal, I wish you this FDP in a very success way. Apart from that, I have requested my faculty members already, but once again I remind him how to make use of it and how to do a lot of things for the welfare of the society through our educational institution, which is very important. Nowadays, upskilling the skill is very important. The name is our identification. Education is merely a only qualification. Those students upskilling the skill, they will only get a job. So we have been doing the right path to go ahead for the welfare of the students. I think this FDP also will be the eye opener for all of you. So once again, my heartfelt congratulations to all the faculty, especially Dr. Colette, Dr. Rani, and Dr. Vaishnavi also. So I wish this FDP in a grand success way. Anyway, thank you very much for giving this golden opportunity to me. Thank you, professors. Have a nice day. I will pray to shower his blessings to all my faculty members. Bye.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, sir, for your encouraging words and for that insightful overview of our institution. Your words beautifully captured the spirit and legacy of VO Chidambaram College, reminding us of the proud tradition we all belong to. Now, May I invite Dr. Khalid Sharmila, Associate Professor of English, to introduce today's distinguished resource person. Ma'am, please.
Good evening, all. It is a pleasure introducing our guest today. Dr. Manu Mangatu is an acclaimed professor of English, poet, author, lyricist, translator, film critic, and publishing expert known for his wide ranging academic and creative achievements. A former assistant professor at Mahatma Gandhi University, he has served as a visiting professor and research consultant at prestigious universities across the USA, UK, Australia, China, Iran, and Indonesia. He has authored 11 major books, translated literary works from Chinese, Persian, and Sanskrit, and edited 29 anthologies and critical volumes with international publishers. His prolific research output includes several international research papers, academic publications. He has earned a recognition as one of the most read and recommended researchers on ResearchGate. His works are published and represented by reputed publishers such as Routledge, HarperCollins, Penguin, Harvard University Press, Smashwords, and Scribe. Dr. Mangatu's excellence has been honored with numerous awards, including the Bella Poetry Prize 2020 and the Research Excellence Award from the Imperial University of Peking, China 2021. A passionate teacher and mentor, he has guided several scholars, conducted over 400 lectures worldwide, and chaired 41 plenary sessions and conferences. He has also led a 6-month online research mentorship program on romantic literature, 21st century perspectives in collaboration with 8 international universities. In recognition of his global expertise, Dr. Manu Mangatu was appointed in 2024 as an international expert for the QS World University Rankings London, further affirming his distinguished position in world academia. Sir, we are doubly honored and elated to have you with us this evening, sir. We are awaiting for your erudite session, sir. Please.
Thank you, ma'am. I'm triply honored to be here and to be talking on this first day of this 7-day FDP on translation. I hope I am audible and visible. Requesting the participants who have turned their videos on not to turn it off. I would like to see faces when we talk, and those who have turned it off, if you can please turn it on, that would be lovely. We can all see and talk about translation. So, my dear friends, I would begin this lecture quoting a couple of people who have said bad things about translation, probably not because they hated translation, but because they wanted to communicate something else. Forgive me for beginning things on a sad note. Robert Frost said, when he was asked what poetry is, he said, poetry is what is lost in translation. And Lawrence Venuti, a person who is well acclaimed when it comes to translation studies, he has said something else. He says, the test of a real translation is that it should not read like translation at all. Okay, you should not look like you at all. Is it what you would like when somebody tells you, I would really love you if you wouldn't look like you at all? That would be worse than a slap on the face. So these are certain things, and this lecture is not innocent, because translation is never innocent. This lecture is theoretical and literary. I'm not going to tell you how to do translation, because I'm not the right person to tell you how to do translation or anything of the sort. I would keep it literary, I would keep it theoretical, but I promise I will keep it simple too. So, the title of my lecture is Presence in Essence to strife in afterlife, the polemical poetics of translation. Nothing to worry. I'm just talking about the idea of essentialism in translation and the idea of afterlife in translation, two ideas that have dominated discourse and debates in translation over the centuries. And we know it was Walter Benjamin who gave us this idea of afterlife when it comes to translation. And I also want to talk about certain struggles in translation, which is why the word polemical enters our title. So, the title of my lecture captures the paradox of translation itself. But then there is no paradox, right? We'd never felt there was any paradox. Now you are saying, or I'm saying that there is a paradox in translation, and that is what I'm capturing. But what is that? You know, the paradox is that the title, my title suggests that while a text begins with an essence of pure presence in its original language, the act of translating it transforms that purity into a struggle for meaning, a struggle for truth, a struggle for the original tone in the afterlife of the text. In other words, every translation, I feel, is both a conflict and a survival, a creative rebirth at times that inevitably debates, distorts, and redefines the original. I'm sorry if I didn't make any sense. I don't usually make much sense, but let me try to explain what I'm trying to tell you. What is essence in terms of translation? In translation, exclusively in translation, essence refers to the core meaning or spirit of a text, the basic meaning, that is its essence. It can be the idea, the emotion, or the truth that the translator believes can be transported across languages without losing much of its power or beauty. This is the problem. There is something called essence in a work, in any work, and the translator's hope, expectation from a translator is that he or she can carry across this essence from one language to the other, from the source language to the target language, without losing any of its charm or beauty or power or the essence of the essence. This is the idea. It is what the translator tries to preserve, even when the words and forms must change. But is true equivalence possible? Is true equivalence possible? Walter Benjamin said something else. He said, every translation, a word that one of the earlier speakers stressed, bridging, hoping that this entire FDP would act as a bridge. Every translation, Walter Benjamin stated, only partly bridges the foreignness of languages. Only partly. Oh, so there is something lost. Something is lost in translation. And Walter Benjamin also says, talking about literary translation in specific terms, he says, literary translation is especially difficult because it must convey not just meaning, but tone, rhythm, and nuance. So this is the paradox that the translator faces. I hope almost or most of us must have tried translation, maybe not professionally, but at least as a useful exercise or out of necessity, we must have tried some translation a few times in our lives. And some of us may be professional translators as well. So the paradoxical situation that we face as translators is the question, everyone goes through this, I'm sure. The question is whether I should be faithful or creative. Can I be faithful and creative? But then faithful and creative are two terms that look like opposites when it comes to translation. If I try to be creative, I will be less faithful. If I try to be faithful, I will not have any freedom to be creative. So sometimes only by straying from the original can the same effect be achieved. Effect of carrying the essence from the source to the target can be achieved sometimes only by straying from the original. Straying, digressing, moving a little aside, beside the original. And that is why the Italians love the saying, traditor, traditor, they say. No, the idea is translator, traitor. A translator is a traitor. Oh my goodness. So what are they trying to say? It captures the idea that every act of translation involves a kind of betrayal. Some kind of betrayal is involved. Betraying whom? Betraying what? You can talk about the guest and the host. So in a translation situation, who would be the guest? Who would be the guest? I would say probably the text that is being translated is the guest. And who would be the host? The host would be the language into which that text is being translated. Isn't it so? Are the guest and the host happy? Can we ever make both of them happy? Would there ever be a situation where both the guest and the host are happy and playful and delighted together? And also the translator, poor translator. So as Umberto Eco said, translation is a compromise, like bargaining at a bazaar. He says at least if you can ensure 50%, then it is good. Umberto Eco means that it is a pakka compromise. You know that a lot is at stake. You know that you cannot do it properly. You know that you cannot achieve 100% success, but still something is better than nothing. So despite inevitable loss, we must translate, because as Vladimir Nabokov stated sometime, even the clumsiest translation is better than none. So do something. Translate in whatever poor way you can, whatever clumsy way you can, and that is still good, because at least you are making it accessible, although it may not be that good, to people and cultures to which the text is now inaccessible. So even the clumsiest translation is better than none, no question about it. And if I'm going theoretical, I have to talk about the myth of presence in translation. I hope you will keep in mind the idea of the guest and the host, the text that is being translated as the guest, and the language to which it is being translated as the host, as the one who is receiving the guest. So there is something called presence. From its very beginning, probably the first time somebody started translating something, translation has been shaped by the myth of presence. So when I say it is a myth of presence, I probably imply that it is not something real. The belief, what is the myth of presence? The belief that an original text false, a pure, self-contained meaning or essence that the translator must faithfully preserve. Now, it contains an essence is the myth. An essence is present is the myth, hence my title. An essence is present in the original is the myth that we have had ever since translation started. Think about Plato. Plato distrusted copies. He saw them as diluted truth. He said it was twice or thrice removed from reality. Cicero and Horace, of course, they quarreled a little bit whether translation should be done word to word or sense to sense, but both of them agreed, confirmed that the original is the true source. Of course, they differed on how to do the translation, but both of them, while differing on how to do it, agreed on the fact that the original is the true source. So this is what Cicero and Horace would say. And then came the Renaissance translators. Even Queen Elizabeth tried translations. We know those translators and all those people. So they turned fidelity to the original into a moral duty. You have to be very honest to the original. That is the most important thing. If you fail to do that, you are a sinner. It's a moral duty, it's a moral obligation on your part to stay true to the original. But this belief created a paradox. To be faithful, to be completely faithful to the original, the translator had to disappear. Why? Only when the translator disappears to be an invisible servant of essence can the translator achieve 100% success in carrying the essence from the guest to the host. Isn't it so? This is the problem. But then, as Derrida argues or argued, the so-called essence or presence of the original is never complete. It is always already shaped by absence, difference, and the possibility of being reinterpreted. I'll explain. Meaning doesn't exist before translation. This is the idea. Meaning doesn't exist before translation. It emerges through translation. And this is probably one central idea that I would want to put across through this lecture. What is literature? What is meaning? Probably emerges through the act of translation. And that is probably one tribute, best tribute that I can offer to translation, to say that literature exists thanks to language, thanks to translation. And that is the effort of this lecture. So if a text can be translated, its meaning was never fixed or singular. Translation reveals that what we call essence is already fluid and repeatable. Essence is fluid. If an essence is in a state of flux, essence is not permanent, and it is repeatable as well. In other words, presence is then an illusion. Presence was always an illusion, and translation is the biggest proof of the impossibility of having an essence and a presence. Having the presence of an essence is an illusion, and this is proved by translation. I hope you are getting me, you are with me. If a text can be translated, it means that its meaning was never fixed. It means that what we call essence was always fluid, was always slippery. This is probably the deconstructive or the post-structuralist way of looking at things. But let me take you a little backwards and tell you where it all started, especially this thinking of things in terms of life and afterlife. It was Walter Benjamin in his famous 1923 essay titled The Task of the Translator, which remains one of the most enigmatic and luminous meditations on translation. I would say it is one of the most literary essays on translation ever. The Task of the Translator by Walter Benjamin. You would love it I'm sure many of us have gone through it. If you haven't, you must if you are into translation, because it makes translation a paka art, and that is very beautiful as well. So at the core of his essay lies his notion of pure language. Walter Benjamin insists that the task of the translator is not to communicate meaning, but to release, like releasing a spirit from a magic lamp, but to release this pure language. That is the task of the translator, according to Walter Benjamin. And about the pure language, he says that it lies hidden in both the original and the translation. So Walter Benjamin doesn't say pure language lies in the original only. He says pure language is something that lies hidden, latent in both the original as well as the translation. What does this mean? So pure language is not a universal Esperanto, a universal language, or a metaphysical essence hidden in words. Rather, it is an illusion. It is an ideal. It is a dream. What is the nature of this dream? Pure language is a dream. It is an unfulfilled totality of meaning towards which all languages strive. Every language is always in a futile attempt to reach this point called totality of meaning. And it is always unfulfilled. As the story of the Tower of Babel, or the story, not the biblical story, but that story by who was it? Who wrote that story? The Library of Babel by the Gabriel Garcia Marquez, a Latin American writer. Was it Marquez? The Tower of the Library of Babel. Marquez. I think it is George Louis Borges. Borges wrote the story, The Library of Babel, because this is never attainable. Languages can never attain this totality of meaning. So this is one idea. Secondly, what Walter Benjamin says, if you interpret it, you can also see he suggests that every language is fragmentary, partial, and incomplete. So translation is the site where these incomplete fragments meet. Why? Because translation is where at least two languages meet. And these are fragments. And only when fragments meet can you expect some fire. See, when these fragments are, brushed against each other, that is when you will have some fire. To kindle some fire, you must have some friction. And to have that friction, you should bring these incomplete fragments together. And what are these incomplete fragments? They are languages. So when do languages meet? In translation. So when translation happens, there is an encounter between these incomplete fragments. And in that meeting, in that encounter, the possibility of a pure language flashes forth. This is the idea of translation. This is the idea that Walter Benjamin tried to say. For Benjamin, translation is not secondary to the original. The original itself calls for translation. The original is asking, praying, begging, can somebody translate me? The original contains within itself the potential to be translated. In this sense, the original lives only in its afterlife. Why? A text survives only through its translations. Thus, translation challenges the superiority of the original. No, you cannot say the original is ever superior. No, translation challenges this. Translation makes the original dependent on its posterity. It can mean children, it can mean its future, it can mean everything. Posterity, by posterity, I would want to have all those meanings. But in simple terms, translation makes it sure that every text is dependent on its translations. This is the simple idea. Then, my dear friends, let us probably focus a little bit more on the most haunting metaphor that Walter Benjamin gives us, the afterlife of a text. Why does he use the word afterlife of a text? For Benjamin, translation is not about transporting or transmitting information or reproducing essence. It is about prolonging the life of a text. It is allowing the text to live again in another language. The translation is not a mere vessel of some meaning, but a transformation of life itself. We talk about energy being transformed from one form to the other, to another. Same, something similar. This is a form of transformation that happens when we are doing translation. And it is a creative process. It is a process where life, rebirth, and afterlife are very much in question. So, my dear friends, Walter Benjamin's notion of afterlife, however, is not an innocent afterlife, or I would say it is not a peaceful afterlife. Rather, it is a polemical afterlife, a recreation of the original. Yes, it is it is polemical. Polemical in the sense it is marked by struggle, fight, strife. For the afterlife always entails transformation, and whenever you need to transform, it involves a lot of pain, it involves a lot of struggle. We know it. When we have to change something in our life, in our habit, in our character, it involves a lot of sacrifice. It takes a lot out of us. Transformation is marked by strife, and so the afterlife of a text in translation entails transformation, reinscription, sometimes even betrayal. A text that is born in translation acquires a new home, a new temporality, new valences, new readerships, a lot of new things. So a text must feel very happy when it is translated. Suddenly it is having a whole new world of possibilities. It feels like a brave new world is awakened in front of it, and the text must feel really happy. A text reborn, in this rebirth, the essence of the original is both preserved and subverted. It is marked, I would say, there is a kind of tug of war happening in a translation. The afterlife is marked by a tug of war between faithfulness and freedom. Faithfulness to the original and freedom to be creative. There is also the tug of war between domestication and foreignization. Domestication, you're trying to assimilate the text to the target language, target culture, that is assimilation. Domestication, foreignization, something, say for example, what Arundhati Roy did in God of Small Things by keeping certain words strictly Malayalam. instead of translating them into English, though translations are available, to make sure that the foreignization is ensured. There is also this tug of war between visibility and invisibility. So these are some of the strifes, the wars that are happening in every translation. And let me just, to be systematic, let me just talk to you about three types of strife, quarrel, fight, tug of war that can be identified in every translation. First one is the strife with the source. Walter Benjamin argues that a translation does not seek similarity, but kinship. A lovely word, kinship, relationship, kin, be the kin. Translation seeks kinship. The task is not to replicate, but to reveal the pure language that underlies all languages. And this very gesture destabilizes the authority of the source, because if the pure language does not fully exist in the original, in the source, then it has no authority, because it is dependent at least on its translations to have fullness, to have that meaning, to have that purity that is there in the pure language that Walter Benjamin talks about. Strife within the source, or strife with the source. First strife. Second one is the strife with the target. The translation bends the target language. It's a difficult process. It is like, it is being strained. The target language is being strained and bent and ruptured. For what purpose? To accommodate foreign ideas, to accommodate foreign words which may not have equivalents. And what happens? There is unease. It creates unease and resistance in its readers. So this is the second strife. And the third strife is the strife with itself, or the strife within itself. The translation itself is torn between fidelity and freedom, faithfulness to the original and freedom to be creative and innovative, between clarity and complexity. So when you try to be clear, you are losing out on the complexity that is there in the original. But if you keep the complexity, you will not be clear in the target language. So there is always this problem. Walter Benjamin's afterlife is polemical. It is fraught with arguments, strife, war, quarrel, whatever synonyms you want to use, precisely because it refuses closure. It refuses finality. Translation is never about preserving essence, but about opening texts to futures that they could not foresee. So a text doesn't know where it is going to live next until it is translated to another language. And then what happens? It has new meanings, it has new audiences, it has new cultural context in which it should operate. And I'm sure that a text, when translated, yes, it is happy with the new audience and all, but it must definitely be feeling homesick. It must feel like a child sent to the hostel. It must definitely feel like I want to go back to my home because I'm not comfortable with these people, their culture, their ways of doing things, the way they pronounce. Not at all comfortable. The text must be feeling very awkward. Thus, every translation is at once a survival, a resurrection, and a tragic rupture that happens within the text. And here I would bring in Derrida with an interesting work that he has written. Whenever I think of anything, I find something that Derrida has written which connects to that also. And Derrida has written the Tour of Babel, Des Tours de Babel in French. And that essay is about translation. And here I want to speak about, when I speak about Babel, you definitely, we are immediately reminded of the Tower of Babel, the biblical story and the Tower of Babel. Of course, we are reminded of Borges's Library of Babel as well. And but then when you talk about the word, when you talk about des tours de Babel in the French, tours, tours in French has a lot of meanings. We have heard Tour de France, and also tour in French has three meanings. One, tours means towers. Two, tours means tours. We went on a tour. That is the second meaning. And then there is a third meaning, which is detour, Detour. So three meanings, and Derrida is very good at playing with words and meanings, and he makes great fun, and he makes great use of all the possible and impossible meanings that this word tours can have in the French original. So his essay titled the De Tour de Babel, the Tower of Babel, basically, but it is wrong to translate it as the Towers of Babel, because it can also mean the tours of Babel, and it can also mean the detours of Babel as well. This essay came out in 1985, and in this essay, Derrida extends and, as usual, complicates Benjamin's thought. He's very good at complicating things. When there is no problem, he comes and creates some problem and then tells you how it can be solved. So he creates a big problem. Derrida, he first seizes on the biblical story of the Tower of Babel, in which humanity's single language, the idea of a single language, is divided into many. We use this story when we talk about diaspora. We use this story when we are in linguistics, when we are in language classes. We use this story everywhere, and this story is very useful. So translation for Derrida takes birth in this originary catastrophe. For Derrida, this was a tragedy that happened. Whatever happened in the biblical story of the Tower of Babel, it was a catastrophe. And Derrida says that translation takes birth in this catastrophe. Great births happen when great things happen. When there will be some big tragedy. You know how Bahubali was born and how his story started. You needed that much tragedy for you to be so successful and so much of an superhuman. So translation, because it had such a great beginning, baptism by fire sort of beginning when the whole Tower of Babel crumbled. That is why maybe we are still talking about translation. So Derrida talks about the impossibility of a single origin. The myth of Babel, for Derrida, destroys the fantasy of an original unified language. Translation is necessary precisely because there was never any presence to begin with. What presence? There was never any linguistic presence to begin with, because you saw how the Tower of Babel tumbled and stumbled and splintered into 1,000 fragments. So this is the first thing, the impossibility of a single origin. Then Derrida talks about the gift and depth of translation. The gift and the depth of translation. What are these gifts and debts? He always talks in terms of binaries, and he is the person who is credited with destroying binaries, destabilizing binaries, dismantling binaries. But then he's so fond of talking about binaries, because only when he talks about binaries he can destroy them. Yeah, so probably that is why. And here he brings up another binary, which is, even the pronunciation feels so beautiful. The gift and depth of translation. Derrida insists that translation is always caught between duty and impossibility. The translator must gift meaning to the target language. Gifting meaning to the target language, but then the translator, according to Derrida, can never fully repay the debt to the source language. Gift and debt. He is gifting something to the target language, but he can never repay the debt he owes to the source language. So every translation carries a sense of failure. But then Derrida says this failure is essential. It is not a flaw. It's okay to fail because this failure is essential for translation. Thirdly, Derrida brings in this tower metaphor. He plays on the French word tours, which can mean, as I told you, it can mean towers, it can mean turns, it can mean detours. Translation, like Bible's tower, is a detour, a turning away from the illusion, turning away from it, from the illusion of perfect meaning. Yet, it is only through these turning aways that meaning continues to survive and circulate. Difference, to differ and to defer. It is through these detours that meaning continues to survive. In Derrida, then, translation becomes a form of hospitality. Another interesting binary he deconstructs, the binary between hostility and hospitality. Translation is a form of hospitality. Why? We welcome the other into our language. Isn't it hospitality? Yes. But this hospitality is unfortunately ridden with violence. Violent hospitality. What is the violence? Because it involves things like betrayal, appropriation, domestication, all cruel things, right? So there is hostility in hospitality. The polemic that I have in my title lies in this paradox as well. Translation is both gift and theft, I would say. It is gift and theft. It is fidelity and infidelity. It is hospitality and hostility. Another deconstructionist, Paul D. Mann, Derrida at least talked about it in an essay, but he only complicated it. Then Paul D. Mann came, and what he did is even worse or even better. So Paul D. Mann, in the same year, he wrote an essay titled Conclusions. Oh, let us conclude all problems. Conclusions. Walter Benjamin's essay, The Task of the Translator. What Paul D. Mann did is, he's very good at giving examples. And he gave another deconstructive reading. We have seen so many readings that Paul D. Mann has done. And that is one way to understand how deconstructive readings are done. And here, Paul D. Mann takes Walter Benjamin himself and deconstructs Walter Benjamin, or his essay on translation. So for Paul D. Mann, so what Paul D. Mann does in this essay, Conclusions, is he deconstructs Walter Benjamin. So for Paul D. Mann, translation exemplifies a paradox at the heart of language itself. What is the paradox? According to Paul D. Mann, the paradox is translation is impossible and necessary. An impossible necessity or a necessary impossibility. That is translation according to Paul D. Mann. This is the paradox at the heart of language itself, which Paul D. Mann talks about. Why is it impossible? Because, according to Paul D. Mann, it is impossible because no translation can ever fully capture the original. Fair enough. The relationship between signifier and signified is unstable. Meaning is always deferred. So no translation can ever fully capture the original. So that is why it is impossible. Fine. Then why is it necessary? What is the necessity? Texts demand translation. Without it, they remain unread. Unread means dead. They remain unread and dead and confined to their language if they are not translated. To live, texts need to be translated. So translation is the condition for survival of any text. That is why translation is necessary as well. That is why it is an impossible necessity and a necessary impossibility. And then Paul Deman also talks about the allegory of translation. He suggests that Benjamin's essay itself is an allegory of reading. Translation dramatizes the impossibility of total legibility while enacting the necessary. I will not talk about that. Let us leave those things, but this is enough for it. So, for Paul D. Mann, the strife within translation is not a problem to be solved, but a structural inevitability. It is inevitable. Translation reveals the rhetorical nature of language, its play of tropes, its undecidability. This makes translation not a secondary task, but the exemplary activity of reading itself. Now, my dear friends, let me come to the second part of my title where I talk about the polemical poetics of translation. What is it? If translation gives a text its afterlife, I would say that it also makes it a polemical art form. Translation becomes an art form, an art born of conflict and tension rather than harmony. Isn't it so? It is an art born of conflict and tension. Its beauty lies in its very struggle. And when I'm talking about polemical poetics of translation, I would talk about it in three ways. Forgive me if I sound a little too theoretical, but the three ways I will try to explain though. The first one is the ontological polemic, the second is the hermeneutic polemic, and the third is the aesthetic polemic. I will try to keep it very simple. First one, the ontological polemic. It's about origins. Here, when we are talking about origins, we are talking about essence. So ontological polemic is about essence. It is the debate over whether meaning or truth can truly be carried across languages. The tension between perfect equivalence and untranslatability. And you can, if you're interested in this ontological problem, then you can think about Roman Jacobson, who showed how different kinds of translation within a language, between languages, and between sign systems reveal the limits of translation, limits of true equivalence. Then came Derrida. Derrida dismantled the illusion of perfect transferability, showing that meaning is deferred, meaning is always deferred. And then Gayatri Spivak came and she said something even more beautiful. Spivak added that translation is not just linguistic, it involves power, it involves identity, it involves gender. Her take on gender is very interesting. I will come back to that later. So Spivak says it is an ethical act of hospitality to the other. Translation about the essence, about this is the ontological struggle that we are talking about its essence. Second struggle is the hermeneutic polemic. Now, what is hermeneutics? Hermeneutics is about interpretations, right? So what is this struggle? Every translation is also an interpretation. In other words, translations or translators don't just carry meaning, they reshape it, they reshape meaning within new cultural and ideological contexts. Sure, when it is taken to a new culture, it has to be reshaped, fine. So it involves interpretation as well. Think about, I will give you some examples to make this clear, how it is hermeneutic. Think about the English translations of Vedic texts, or just think about Bible translations into native languages. And this will tell you very clearly how translation can serve political or colonial agendas. We saw this. We have all seen this. How translation has served agendas. So, if it serves agendas, then it is about interpretation. That is why there is a hermeneutic polemic in translation as well. So, the translator thus is an interpreter also, an ideologue, shaping how cultures are understood and remembered as well. So think of the bigness or the hugeness or the largeness of the task that translator is undertaking. He is deciding cultures. She is deciding how cultures are remembered through translations. And the third polemic I wanted to talk to you was about the aesthetic polemic. Aesthetic, it can be about being creative or about creativity. So, what is the aesthetic struggle here? Translation is a creative struggle between faithfulness and freedom, something that we discussed. And Paul Deman's claim that translation is at once impossible and necessary is a clear, beautiful paradox that gives translation its aesthetic force. For us to just remember, aesthetics, beauty usually originates when there is a paradox. And I have been talking about paradox all through this lecture. You know, when you think about any unbelievably good experience, it has something paradoxical about it. Think of religious experiences, think of mystical experiences, think of aesthetic experiences. All these experiences, we speak of God, we speak of the sublime in words that are oxymorons, words that are paradoxical in nature, because they cannot otherwise be described. Think of musical experiences. You know, we speak of music in terms of silence. Isn't it so? So, you know, every beautiful thing, aesthetic thing, everything that invokes us within us something aesthetic, I'm sure works around this idea of paradox. Even literature. That is why we have irony and paradox and contradiction and ambiguity and all these things. And that is why we celebrate all these things. Isn't it so? So think about any beautiful experience, it is full of paradox. And that is why the translator battles with rhythm, idiom, and silence. And through this struggle emerges something new, a poetic creation. Every creation is painful, isn't it, my dear friends? Every creation is painful. Ask a mother, or ask a poet, or ask a child drawing something. Every creation is painful. The translator, in this sense, is at once a poet, a creator, a traitor, living in the space between languages. In other words, translator is a person who is neither here nor there. She occupies a nowhere land. Neither here nor there. Poet, translator, traitor, creator. In short, the polemical poetics of translation teaches us that conflict is not failure. It is the source of creativity. My dear friends, let us also talk a little bit about fidelity, betrayal, and hospitality. Moving from essence to afterlife forces us to rethink fidelity in translation. Traditionally, you know, the point is to be faithful was to be invisible. The translator had to be invisible. And to betray was to be creative. But thinkers beginning with Derrida and Paul Ricoeur see fidelity differently. Fidelity for them is not servitude to the original or to the essence. For them, it is a form of hospitality. Derrida's hospitality is like this. You know, he says to translate is to welcome the foreign into your home. But hospitality then is not simple. It carries, we already discussed this, the hostility involved in translation, the violence of appropriation, the risk of assimilation. The guest, which is the text, is altered, changed, forcefully, violently manipulated. And is the host happy? The host, the language, the target language is unsettled too. So translation is a process where both the guest and the host are perfectly unhappy, perfectly unsettled, perfectly uncomfortable. Paul Ricoeur speaks of linguistic hospitality. For him, translation is an act of giving and receiving. Paul Ricoeur, Ricoeur. Like his spelling, his ideas are also complex. Translation is an act of giving and receiving, a mutual exchange. The point with translation is it transforms both languages. When you give something to someone, think of a situation where it transforms you and the receiver. That is what translation is, according to Paul Ricoeur. And I promised you I will talk to you something, or I will discuss Spivak with you. So what is Spivak's idea? Spivak talks about ethical fidelity. Fidelity, truthfulness here is not to words, but to subjectivity, to difference itself. I will explain. For Spivak, translation is a responsibility to the other with a capital O. And for Spivak, it is a responsibility to a particular other, which is the subaltern woman whose voice otherwise risks erasure. There is a chance that the subaltern woman's, she talked about how the subaltern woman can the subaltern speak and cannot speak, and will the subaltern speak? She didn't reply, of course, but then what she's trying to say here is about whether the subaltern woman's voice that is being that has a chance of being lost completely can be regained through translation. So that is why Spivak foregrounds the subaltern woman's voice, arguing that translation is one of the very few means through which marginalized subjectivities can enter people's thoughts. She would say global discourses to make it sound complicated. But this entry into our thinking process must resist assimilation. It must preserve alterity, according to Spivak. For us, it must preserve its difference. We should celebrate the difference. Difference must be preserved at all costs. This is what Spivak says. Spivak also insists that the translator must surrender to the text. And this surrender, the way Spivak writes about it, I feel she means it somewhat erotically as well. You should surrender to the text even erotically. Listening to its rhythms, to its silences, to its textures, to its bends and turns. Spivak criticizes the demand for easy readability. Many times we hear this when somebody is translating something. If you have taken tasks of translation, you are always told by many of the people that it must be easily readable. It should be, people should be able to understand it. But Spivak says she criticizes the demand for easy readability in translation, which, according to her, erases cultural and linguistic particularities. This is a kind of domestication, isn't it? This is a kind of thing that Britishers did when they came to India. And they said about the white man's burden. Similar is the case of easy readability. This domestication silences the other, turning translation into a form of imperialism. For those who are interested in looking at translation from a colonial imperial perspective, maybe here is a starting point. Thus, fidelity in modern translation theory is no longer about guarding and securing essence. It is about ethics. It is about negotiating an ethics of encounter, negotiating hospitality and hostility, gift and theft, presence and absence, visibility and invisibility. And that is where strife becomes a promise. I don't know whether you will agree, but I wish to argue, maybe provocatively, that strife is not a problem, but a promise. Let us not mistake strife for failure. The strife of the afterlife is the very condition of translation's vitality. think about it. A translation that doesn't provoke any debate or discomfort or resistance among readers, critics, or cultures is a dead translation. It is too smooth, too assimilated, too silent. Strife is not mere conflict, it is the creative tension that gives translation its power to generate discourse, to generate dissent, to generate difference. So that is why translations afterlife is polemical, because language itself is polemical. Think of language. It is shaped not by purity but by multiplicity, but by not by purity but by contamination. Meaning is never a knowledge. It is always a dialogue across tongues, across times, across temperaments. And strife forces us to confront the limits of language, the fractures of meaning, and the politics of representation. It opens space for new readings, new subjectivities, new futures. Should I give you examples? If time is not a constraint, I will give you two very interesting examples. One from Lawrence Venuti and another from Antoine Berman. We started late. Ananda Vaishnavi, ma'am, when should I conclude?
Sir, participants are willing. I think you can have a couple of minutes, I think. Yes.
Couple of minutes.
Yes, sir.
That is not
Sir,
good.
okay. Okay, sir. We can have you can have a 10 minutes. Okay. Shall
Not
we?
okay.
Is that okay? Not okay.
Okay, I mean, not
Yeah,
okay in the sense it is not okay for giving the, examples, but, let me try to summarize
sir.
them.
Please.
Lawrence Venuti. I started after 7:30, I guess, so I am having that right, I hope. Lawrence Venuti has written a work titled The Translator's Invisibility in 1995. And in that book, he diagnoses a cultural illness in Anglo-American translation practice. The demand that translations must read fluently, as if written originally in English. Fluency. This fluency, Venuti argues, renders the translator invisible. The translator disappears so that the illusion of presence, the seamless text, remains intact. I guess I'm not making sense because I hear times wingless chariot flapping near my wings, near my ears, and that is why I'm not making sense. Let us leave then these examples. Venuti basically contrasts two things: domestication versus foreignization. What is domestication? Marking or making the foreign text conform to target text norms. That is domestication, making it obey. And what is foreignization? Resisting assimilation, leaving traces of the foreign. So, by keeping traces of the foreign, translation honors difference of the source and unsettles. Sharmila ma'am, can you please mute? You are so worried, I can understand. Okay, then I will wind up this thing anyway. So, the another example was about Berman, and you can find the experience of the foreign, a work in 1984 that speaks of the trial of the foreign. You can think about trial in multiple meanings, and he speaks about 12 deforming tendencies in translation. You can think about all those things like rationalization, clarification, expansion, explanation, ennoblement. These are certain things that a translator is asked to do, but then a translator cannot do because these are mistakes according to Berman. I leave it here. So let me just conclude. So what is then the future of translation? What then is the polemical poetics of translation's future? I would say it is the recognition that translation is never about reproducing essence, but about negotiating afterlives. It is the acknowledgement that every translation is an argument, an intervention in the politics of language and culture. It is the embrace of conflict as the site of creativity, ethics, and survival. My dear friends, translations polemical poetics is the poetics of becoming, not the poetics of being. Texts do not live by preservation. Texts live when they are transformed. And this transformation happens through translation. So, in this AI age of machine translation and algorithmic equivalence and everything, digital humanities, we are once again seduced by the fantasy of presence, the dream of perfect, seamless transfer from the source to the target. But don't get deceived. Let us remember, essence was always an illusion. Afterlife is always polemical. So, if AI promises transparency, then the task of a human translator is to preserve opacity, is to preserve resistance, is to preserve creative tension, because it is in strife that texts live. Translation begins in the illusion of presence. It lives in the promise of afterlife, and it thrives in strife. From presence in essence to strife in afterlife, translation, my dear friends, I'm winding up finally. Translation remains our most radical practice of hospitality, conflict, and creativity. I have heard people say translation is secondary to literature, so many things. I don't think translation is the shadow of literature. No, it is literature itself in its most polemical, most alive form. If so, let me open up unravel translation before you as the most radical act of literature. Thank you. I'm
Thank you
done.
so much, sir.
Thank you, Benedicta. You did a wonderful job introducing everyone and beginning the
Thank you,
session.
sir.
Very good. Yeah.
Thank you so much, sir. So, thank you for your thought provoking and intellectually enriching session. Your lecture opened up a fresh perspectives on the art of translation, the clarity of thought, the depth of analysis, and the passion for language you have shared have truly inspired everyone present here. Your thought that conflict isn't failure, it is a source of creativity was my personal favorite. We are deeply grateful for your time and effort you have taken to be with us today despite your busy schedule. On behalf of the PG and Research Department of English, VOC College, we extend a heartfelt thanks to you, sir, for making this session both enlightening and memorable.
Okay, so cleverly she is winding up. She is saying the vote of thanks. A vote of thanks means we will not have an interactive session. We will not ask questions.
No, we have, sir. No, sir, we have, sir.
Okay.
We do have, sir.
Okay, benediction comes. Yes, come on, Benedicta. Yes.
Dear participants, let's fill the chat box with a big round of applause to express our gratitude to Dr. Manu Mangatu for such a remarkable session.
I think Sri Vidya ma'am has a question.
Yeah, so we now move on to the interactive session moderated by Dr. Virani Priyadarshini, Assistant Professor of English. Participants are welcome to post their questions.
Heartfelt apologies. I didn't know this was coming. My mistake. Mea culpa. Okay. Yes. The questions, please. Yes. Sri Vidya. Yes. No. Somebody is taking over the session, I guess. Yes.
No worries, sir. No worries.
Sri Vidya ma'am.
Sri Vidya ma'am, you have raised your hand. Can you pose your question? Now the forum is open for queries.
Ma'am, if you may permit.
Okay. Yes, sir. You proceed, please.
A very good evening to one and all here. What a way of beginning this FDP with the Dr. Manu's lecture. He came up with a very brief, pinpointed bombardment of ideas. which has really been insightful for us. We are really overwhelmed by the flow of thought that went into it and a horde of critics that we came across. So thank you so very much for that insightful session, sir. My only question was, when in your title you have used the word afterlife, and like when we look at the word afterlife, involves like an end and then a beginning. So like, are you trying to say that the original text has to come to an end to have an afterlife? Is it something of that sort? Could you just throw light on that?
Let us go to the cemetery of T.S. Eliot and have a look at what is written there. In my beginning is my end, in my end is my beginning. So, sir, you have a very valid point. When you have to talk about afterlife, there must be some sense of ending. But then we are talking about having no closure, having no finality, having no end. I think, Walter, when it was not me who talked about afterlife, I give the credit and the trouble and the blame to Walter Benjamin. I will not take it. Walter Benjamin talked about afterlife. When he talked about afterlife, probably he may not have thought about this in the sense there is an end or an ending happening to a text, but for a new beginning. Probably the problem comes with our way of understanding beginning. I guess so. Because when you talk about theology, for example, we say that God is timeless. We say that God existed all the time. He was there 2000 years ago, he was there 5000 years ago, but before that, then also he existed. Then also he existed. So where is we cannot understand things without the sense of beginning. Probably our silly brains can understand having no end forever. You can, because all our favorite heroes and heroines, we want them to be happily married, happily ever after. We are fine with happily ever after. But beginning with nothing, we always need some peg, some point in the timeline where something begins. So we are never comfortable with the idea of not having a beginning. God is some idea that we have talked about, where we have never heard that God had a birth. God was there forever, omnipresent, omnipotent, omniscient, all these omni ideas, and we have a little bit of difficulty because we have seen only things with a beginning. We see things in terms of cycles: life, death, afterlife, morning, afternoon, morning, noon, night, and again morning. Seasons, spring, summer, winter, spring, we cannot understand things without this cyclical nature, because we always believe that if there is spring, if winter comes, can spring be far behind? This is the way we can understand. This is the only way probably we human beings can understand things. But then applying this way of understanding to a concept has its problems, because a concept like afterlife, of course it is metaphorical, no doubt about it, but then we see that it has some literal meaning as well, not just metaphorical, in the sense a text takes its afterlife in its translations, and it is very much new. It ends, or it ceases to be what it is as far as the target language is concerned. It is no longer the origin, what was there before. It is something new. But then, is it totally new? No, it cannot be totally new. It has something, and that is where you can think of Derrida and his idea of traces and ontology. Go to the ghost. Ghost is something that is at once present and absent. And to trace the origin of the ghost, we have to say something like the ghost was born when the person died. The birth of the ghost coincides with the death of the person. And I'm sure many of you are reminded of how the essay, Death of the Author ends, the death of the author and birth of the reader. So I believe that this is a question, whatever you said makes absolute sense, but then trying to find answer to this question would be like trying to find who was born first, whether it was the hen or, that sort of question, that sort of problem it is. And I'm not, we sometimes see our pet dogs trying to catch its tail. It goes round and round and round trying to catch its own tail, bite its tail, but it never reaches it because the tail is also moving round and round. So some tails are moving round. Yes. Thank you, sir, for that interesting question. Yeah.
And it is like, I could now think of it as the rising of the phoenix.
Yes, why not? Yes. Absolutely. Like a phoenix, absolutely.
Thank you so much, sir.
Dear participants, the feedback link is posted. Kindly fill in. Now I call upon.
Yes, sir. Actually, you have a question, sir. What about translation?
Coining new vocabulary. Coining new vocabulary is very good question again. Coining new vocabulary goes beyond whatever we have discussed thus far, because it's a very relevant point. Because Vishwajit Singh Chudasama, excellent question, sir. Because it is not assimilation, it is not foreignization either. You are not foreignizing it, you are not assimilating it. Instead, you are finding a new word for an idea that cannot be translated into this receiving language. But is that a solution? Yes, technically it is a solution, but would translation accept that solution? The problem is, if I when I translate something from one language to another, think of the classical example of The Catcher in the Rye, the novel The Catcher in the Rye, and when it is translated into different languages, it has strange titles, very strange titles. It can mean the Gunda in the farm. It can mean so many things. It never captures the essence of The Catcher in the Rye, because what Burns and his song had, from which this title is drawn, it is drawn from Burns' song about the catcher in the Rye. So that can never occur in any other language other than English. It is impossible. And so whatever we coin, whatever word we coin, the coining a word, say for example, we use words like difference, portmanteau words, we sometimes use neologisms, but whatever we do, the purpose is simple. We have an idea that cannot be completely encapsulated with the words of a particular linguistic system. So we introduce a new word, good. But then, is it assimilation? Not exactly. Is it foreignization? Not exactly. So basically, we are using the new word as a new container for keeping this fresh meaning. And we are keeping this new container on our shelf of all the containers with all those meanings. But then meaning is always deferred. So this container gets its meaning only when you look at all the other containers, all the other signifiers and signifieds in that language. You have a problem, but that is a definite problem, and that is a very, very, very poignant point. No doubt, coining new vocabulary needs different ways of looking at the problem. Definitely, sir. Hats off to you. You have nailed it on its head. So, yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. And Ms. Ritu Sharma has asked, is it aphorism?
What is aphorism? I don't know. Is it? What is it? Translation as aphorism?
No,
Or
she just meant like new coinages or other.
Previous question.
I will. I was just the translator here. I leave it to Vishwajit Singh Chudasama and Ritu Sharma to have the strife and decide on it, because he asked the question and she had the retort. So, is it aphorism, Vishwajit sir? If you can give her a reply, is it an aphorism?
No, sir. Actually, I just thought about and I just asked. It is ये बहुत सारे दिनों से था ये माइंड में कि हाँ ये कुछ वोकेबुलरी टाइप का कुछ होना चाहिए कुछ नया ट्रांसलेशन में. That's why I asked this question, sir.
Okay. So he has switched between languages as well. To end this session, what better way than to code switch and have Hindi and English working simultaneously to contain.
Sir, actually, one thing I want to say that, sir, I thoroughly enjoy your lecture, sir. It's a very fruitful way, sir, for that.
Thank you, Vishwajit Singh, sir. Thank you so much.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Special thanks to Deepthi, Suruchi, people who turned their videos on, because I was looking at you to talk. Suruchi was looking down for a while, but then she started looking up, and Deepthi had always her face given to the screen, so that was very good. I had a lot of comfort in talking when people are having their videos on. So thank you so much. Benedicta, Priyadarshini, ma'am, Priya, everybody, the organizers, thank you for this opportunity. And I'm sure we are going to have accelerating sessions ahead in the coming days. College Sharmila ma'am feels a little hungry, sleepy, angry perhaps. No, she's laughing. Okay, so thank you so much. Just kidding, ma'am. No offense, yes.
Sir, I think you have one more question from Barbara Simpson. Sir, can we liken translation to T.S. Eliot traditional and individual talent?
Yes. That is one way we would want to think about it. At least in our brain, we would look at translation, and in other words, Barbara ma'am is our sweet, darling madam from Meghalaya, and since yesterday her video has stopped working. She only exists in the dark. But
yes, sorry about it.
Not an issue. Yesterday also we had a lecture and Barbara ma'am was there. So yeah, the point is, I guess you mean to say something like whether we can look at it as tradition and individual talent. In the essay Tradition and Individual Talent, T.S. Eliot spoke about what tradition is, what individual talent is, and he always rated tradition above individual talent, something that romantics would disagree with. Now the question, if I explain that question with Barbara ma'am's permission, I guess she's asking it more like, when I'm talking about faithfulness to the original and freedom of creativity, isn't it something like the contrast that T.S. Eliot makes when he speaks about tradition and individual talent? Tradition is like staying faithful to the original. Individual talent is like giving freedom to your creativity. But then this is a strife, this is an encounter, this is a problem that is at the heart of translation, and it is very fruitful to use it as a wonderful metaphor. Definitely, ma'am. Definitely you can use T.S. Eliot's idea of tradition and individual talent as a beautiful metaphor to understand the paradox underlying translation, the difficulty that a translator faces, because you cannot go for either. Nobody is happy. Neither the guest nor the host is happy. And and if you extend it, if you extrapolate that metaphor a little further, you are talking about the conflict between classicism and romanticism. Isn't it so? Because tradition and the individual talent is in a way about classicism and romanticism. The classical ideal of following the models and repeating, and in a way you are talking about Rahul Dravid and Sachin Tendulkar. You are talking about Rafael Nadal and Roger Federer. You're talking about genius, individual talent, and hard work. What is more, we say it is certain percent inspiration and certain percent perspiration. Translation exists in that void, in that neither space, nether world between here and there. It was Edward Said's biography is titled, what is it, his autobiography's title? It is about that kind of an existence, because Edward Said is a person, think about his name itself, Edward and Said. It is at a junction, which is a third space. You can talk about Homi Bhabha and his idea of the third space. You can talk about Lacan and his idea of that third area within his two circles. All these possibilities are there, and I'm sure there is some space where these two circles would meet, and that is where this translated exists. That is where we have some meaning, but rest belongs to two separate categories. So the intersection, when we studied mathematics, there was some term for it where two circles would meet, some intersect, and certain point you mark it like that. I don't know how. So I think there is that certain point where things meet, whether even if you're talking about classicism and romanticism without classicism would be meaningless, because it is all creativity and there is no all freedom, and complete freedom is not good. Similarly, classicism without a little bit of romantic spirit would be very dry. So it is somewhere in between. Striking the balance is the third space. Everything is about striking the right balance. It has exceeded 25 minutes now. My goodness, Narmada is having a perfect clock, a stopwatch.
Thank you, sir.
So thank you so much.
To conclude this inspiring session, I invite Dr. Ananda Vaishnavi ma'am, Assistant Professor of English, to propose the vote of thanks.
No. Good evening, everybody.
First, she occupied 2 spaces. Now she occupies none.
I know. So good evening, sir. Good evening, everybody. I'm really honored and very happy. I'm really honored and happy to propose the vote of thanks for the day. And I know, Manu sir, we didn't do justice, as you pointed out, but still, many participants were requesting for it. So we actually planned for an elaborate question and answer interactive session. So without further delay, I would like to thank our management and our respected principal for encouraging us to do such new endeavors. And this online faculty development program was rolled on months ago, weeks ago actually, to be frank, on stage. So we thank our principal for his inaugural address. We appreciate and thank our dearest HOD, Dr. P.D. Sylvia, for gracing the occasion. And our gratitude goes to the resource person for the day, Dr. Manu Mangatu, for instinctively accepting our invitation as such. Okay, thank you so much, Manu sir. That was a fabulous session. And thank you so much. He is actually not even in our country. He's somewhere abroad, but still he managed to, grace the event, okay, with his scholarship. Thank you so much, Manu sir. And I especially thank the department faculty members for their support and encouragement throughout. And dear participants, we are overwhelmed by your response, even after a few minutes delay and everything. I know most of you are here running to help us out at the house course and dinner time. I understand that, So thank you so much, and dearest participants and everyone here. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much. Justice served. I don't say that you didn't do justice or we didn't. There was justice served. Now only dinner remains to be served. Yeah.
Thank you, Manu sir.
So
Thank you.
thank you, sir, for the wonderful
you, sir.
session. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank
It
you.
was really awesome, sir. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone.
Manu
Thank you,
sir, as
participants.
usual, it was so inspiring and a mesmerizing session.
Okay, so her lordship, princess, has given me the good wishes as well. Thank you so much, princess. We are friends. That is why I take that freedom. She is
Okay,
a
sir. Thank you, sir.
wonderful
Thank you,
person.
sir.
So
Thank you. Thank you.
thank you
Sir.
so much. Yes, yes.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
With that, we bring day one of our international FDP to a close. A sincere thanks to our principal, speaker, Dr. Manu Mangatu sir, faculty members, and the participants for making this evening so enriching. Let's carry forward the spirit of learning as we meet again tomorrow for day two. Have a wonderful evening ahead.
Okay, let's call it a day. Thank you.
Thank you, Benedicta.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, sir.
Thank you all. Thank you, ma'am.